Greetings and welcome to Greater Life Church Elements class. This is our online video that we put on our Facebook page, and also we have it referenced in the Greater Life Church YouTube page. You can find it there by just searching for our church name out of Dixon, Illinois, and then you can find these lessons on these element class lessons. Today, we are continuing our study in Module 2, and that's about the relational elements of our spiritual life. And right now, within Module 2, we're on Module 2.2, which is about gracious communications. And now we've had several sections that we've covered already of gracious communications. We've had an introduction. We've studied Part 1, the challenge of communication. We've studied Part 2, the principles for godly communication. And today we want to look at Part 3, which is the other side of communications, more in lines to how we listen and realizing that it takes two people to have a conversation. Let's turn to page 22 in our study guides today, and we're going to complete the focus statement, the fill-in-the-blank focus statement. It says this: communication is not just one-way act of speaking, and a commitment to gracious communication should prompt us to evaluate the way we listen to others. We can reflect God's grace when we offer others support and understanding by listening. And so this is about how that we are going to keep our commitment to gracious communications, and we're going to try our very best to listen to others and to reflect on what is being said, and to reflect on how that we can give grace to those that we have a conversation with. Let's first take a look at our foundational scriptures found in Proverbs 18:2. It says, "A fool hath no delight in understanding, but that his heart may discover itself." What it says also in Proverbs 18:13, it says, "He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him." So going to questions on page 22, question number 1, a fool has no delight in what? And that's in verse 2, and of course that is, he has no delight in understanding. Question number 2, the fool is concerned with expressing what? Well, he's expressing his own opinion, his own heart. Question number 3, if an answer is formed before the matter is heard, it results in what? And that's in verse 13, and it results in folly and shame in a person's life. Question number 4, how can we show others grace through listening? Well, you patiently listen. You don't just hear, but you listen for understanding. So we find in these scriptures that listening is a vital part of communication. There's a distinct difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is an involuntary physical response to auditory stimuli. We do not need to think to hear. It just happens naturally. However, listening involves understanding what we audibly hear. We choose to be attentive to what is being spoken or what we hear. For instance, we can hear an oncoming car, but it's just noise that we hear until we try to understand it. How do we try to understand it? Well, we ask questions. What does this sound mean? We're trying to understand it. Is it getting closer or farther away? Sounds like a threat to my life? And it's then that when we listen, we also confirm with our eyes, and we say, oh, we need to look across the street before we cross it because there's a car coming. So until we try to really listen, which implies some sort of understanding of what we hear, we won't know whether or not this sound is a threat to us. We won't know how to understand it. So accordingly, when we hear others talk, are we just hearing a sound, or are we intentionally trying to understand what is being said? Listening to others means intentionally trying to understand the meaning of their words. Many times we listen, but we don't comprehend what a person is trying to say to us. We don't comprehend their real true meaning. Sometimes we think we know what a person's going to say, and then we answer them before they finish explaining themselves. Well, this is foolish listening according to the Bible in Proverbs 18:13. I'm going to read from the ISV version, that same verse we already had read. It says this: whosoever answers before listening is both foolish and shameful. That's a little more explicit. We can hear without understanding. This is foolishness. Or we can truly listen with the intention of understanding what is being communicated. This is wise. Communication is used for good. It's for edification purposes. Ephesians 4:29, reading from the ESV, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. A word fitly spoken by us can impart blessing. However, interpersonal communication is a give and take event. It's a give and take conversation. The blessing must flow both ways. Sometimes a listening ear is exactly the kind of grace a person needs to receive from us. They're not looking, for instance, for us to solve a problem, but they just need to get something off their chest. Instead of an onslaught of opinion, in those cases, it's more blessed to hear than to speak. The average person is able to speak about 152 to 175 words per minute. However, our minds are capable of comprehending speech over 2 times faster than that. Sometimes we try to listen to what is being spoken while using our additional mental capacity to formulate a response or to think about a completely different subject. So what happens when our mind kind of jumps ahead of the conversation, that jumps ahead of the actual conversation? Well, inevitably, the other thought processes begin to, dominate our minds, and we miss the point of what the person's trying to communicate to us. We become like the person described in Proverbs 18:2. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. This is simply saying that one is a fool if they'd rather express their own opinion, their own thoughts, rather than to understand the communication of another. It takes some patience. It takes a listening ear to understand another person's thought and conversation. This kind of behavior communicates that we do not value what others have to say. We don't want people to think that we don't care about what they're saying, so we need to learn to listen. Being a good listener is not difficult, but it requires our full attention and patience while others explain themselves. We must be there and be prepared to be nowhere else but there. We must put aside all the side distractions, such as our phones, our own agendas and our schedules, our own thinking even. Actually engage in understanding what is being spoken to us. We're focused on hearing intently what they're saying. Even our body language can show disinterest. It can show distraction and impatience. People who are only interested in expressing their own opinions will quickly become impatient and distracted in the conversation. Again, referring to Proverbs 18:13 in the ISV version, whosoever answers before listening is both foolish and shameful. So we must set aside our tendency to formulate our answer before hearing the whole matter. When we stop listening in order to craft a response, we may miss the whole point of the communication, and our response may result in speaking to something entirely different than what the speaker was actually trying to say, what he was actually trying to address. This results in miscommunication and conflict in our relationships. Instead, we must strive to hear with an understanding ear about what is being spoken. There will be plenty of time to respond once we know what is actually being said. Then we must think about how to respond properly. Proverbs 15:28, the ESV version says, the heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. So we need to think about, ponder how to give a good answer to someone. And this takes some thought. This takes some patience. It takes slowing down and understanding what a person is saying. We must be empathetic. We must be careful to weigh out a proper answer. Otherwise, we miss the whole point of listening. There are times when the person speaking is not looking for a solution to a problem, but instead they're looking for someone who will listen and care. We should not rush to judge a person's feelings or to provide an answer for every difficulty. That's why we are told to be quick to hear but slow to speak in James chapter 1, verse 19. Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. You know, there are times when we simply need to offer support and understanding by listening. It may require patience and humility on our part, but it can also impart value and encouragement to our conversation partner. In conclusion, listen, and biblically speaking, there are some keys here to being an active listener, and it will increase your communication skills. So here's just a few keys. Key number one is, pay attention from the start. Be intentional about understanding what is being communicated. Give them your undivided attention, and it will show them you're really listening to them. Don't be so quick to impose your thoughts and answers, but listen to them. Key number two is acknowledge that you are listening. Let your body language and gestures show attention rather than impatience or disinterest. A simple yes or a I see will help them to know that you're listening. You're acknowledging them, responding in some short way, but not interrupting their thought process. Don't have side conversations while talking to someone, as this will show that you are distracted from their conversation, and it tells them that they're not important. We've got to be careful about side distractions like that. We can show that we are listening by asking questions when appropriate and when clarification is needed for our understanding. But don't ask incessant questions. Many times people will answer the questions in our mind in the process of their communication. We just need to have patience and listen for the answers. And yes, some people are notorious about speaking in long circular thoughts that go nowhere. Well, this is where we must help them recenter their thoughts by saying something like this, and you were saying about, and then remember some of the conversation piece to help refocus them to the point that they were trying to make. That means we have to listen in order to do that. So if you were following their conversation, then you can get them to refocus on the main thought. But we have to be careful of incessantly interrupting their thought processes. We do have to listen. Key number three, don't be quick to speak in answer or judgment. That shows impatience. Especially don't interrupt them while they are speaking. Show good manners. It will frustrate the one speaking if we interrupt, and it will limit our understanding of the matter. We must allow the one speaking to finish their thoughts, and thereby we gain greater understanding. Be quick to hear and slow to speak. Otherwise, we will jump to conclusions or simply pass judgment without understanding. Key number four is respond appropriately. You can only do this with God's help and by thoroughly listening. As we actively listen, it shows respect and understanding toward that individual. Now, while we are actively listening, then we can be gaining information and proper perspective. So remember that our response should not condemn, but be honest and truthful and spoken with a heart of love and respect. Our conversations should edify and build up. There's a way to give good biblical and wise advice without attacking the person, without tearing down that other person. There is a way to give helpful insights to others, which will be wise and logical to them with the Lord's help. That's why we prayerfully need to hear the voice of God while others are speaking. And that's why we need to have good knowledge of the Bible principles and God's perspective on things so that we can impart some wisdom and some good direction for them in their life. The more we learn about God's perspective on all these issues of life, the more His Spirit can quicken to us the right words to speak in others in conversation. Listen, we've run out of time, and I hope this Bible study has been a little bit of a help to you to learn how to have good communication with other people by listening and understanding. But we are out of time. So please join me next week as we learn about how to communicate through times of conflict. And those are the times that really stress our patience. And so we're going to need to learn how we can be able to get through these times of conflict and still communicate with love. Listen, until then, until next week, God bless you. Be quick to listen and slow to speak. Have great conversations this week. God bless you. Thank you for watching.